Are you team structured literacy or balanced literacy? If you've been told that you've got to teach structured literacy and you're not really sure where to start, stay tuned as I share with you how to combine both structured and balanced literacy into your classroom. First of all, if you've been told that you have to change the way you've taught for many, many years and you're not really sure where to go, or you're not really sure if you even believe in it, or you feel like it's that new thing that people are jumping on the bandwagon about and it's going to change in a few years, stick with me because I'm going to share with you something that's super important. And I want you to remember this always. Number one, let's worry about our kids, okay? We're gonna listen to what the people tell us in terms of how we need to teach, but we're going to shut our door and we're going to do what's best for our kids. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to teach structured literacy. That doesn't mean that we're only going to do what we want to do. But what it does mean is that our kids is going to guide us into how we need to teach in any way. Okay, so we're going to let our kids guide us. Now, how do we do that? Well, first of all, the first thing you need to do, and I always say this, is you have to arm yourself with knowledge. So by you just listening to this video is a step one. Arming yourself with knowledge about what it is that you need to teach. So with structured literacy, we need to know what it is not, and how it's going to help our kids. Okay, so what is structured literacy? Well, there's three things that you need to know. It's systematic and cumulative. It is explicit instruction, and it's data driven. Okay, so we need to make sure that anything that we teach, and you'll notice if there's any kind of new phonics program that you're doing, it's definitely systematic and it's definitely cumulative. So the skills that you're teaching, students are going to rehearse and see those over and over and over again. So that spiral curriculum is very important to how the brain works. That is the science of reading. Science of reading is just that students learn better when instruction is systematic and cumulative, and they do need to understand how to decode text. That was a missing piece in balanced literacy. Not everyone studied words and how they work, okay? That was a definite missing piece in balanced literacy. However, I was very fortunate in my training with balanced literacy to be able to be mentored by Dr. Linda Dorn. And if you've ever heard some of her books like Shaping Literate Minds, Apprenticeship in Literacy, those books are all about how to use the workshop approach with balanced literacy, okay? And she was just so good about teaching us how to use our students as guides as to where we needed to be. So all of the talk about how balanced literacy is bad and people were just teaching, using this to gain money and all of that is just silly. Okay, let's just go there. If you've heard that, if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard all of these people just talk about how bad balanced literacy is, let's just throw that out the window because that's not true. Balanced literacy is not bad. What's bad is that we tend to, and we're doing it with structured literacy, by the way, we tend to take something, jump on the bandwagon, and we throw everything else out. That's just something that we do in education, okay? We don't want to do that, okay? We want to arm ourselves with knowledge, and we need to look at both approaches and see, okay, what's best for my students? How can I make it best for my students? So with balanced literacy, the difference between the two, in my opinion, is that structured literacy uses a systematic and cumulative approach, whereas balanced uses a more workshop approach. I do believe that you use the gradual release model in both structured literacy and balanced literacy, and I do believe that they're both diagnostic. So I don't see a lot of differences except in the way that you teach. So the framework for balanced literacy is through teaching with read-alouds, guided reading, shared reading, reader and writer's workshop, independent reading, and you do word study. Not enough word study in balanced literacy. What Dr. Dorn taught us is that we began to use more word study. As she learned more about what kids needed, we began to pull in more word study through our small group, Through our interventions, through our whole group instruction, we began to use more word study in our approach to teaching our students. So I'm really glad that structured literacy has put more of a spotlight on decoding words and to understand how words mean, how they work, and the linguistics of that. But we've got to think about what was the point of balanced literacy. Now, a lot of people will say that balanced literacy and whole language are closely related. I don't see that, and I don't know, I may be wrong with that. I know when I first started school, when I first started going to college, we learned whole language, and the way we learned whole language was not what balanced literacy is to me. But to me, the difference between the two approaches is that structured literacy is definitely more systematic, and some will say a little bit boring. It doesn't have to be boring, but some will say that it is. Whereas balanced literacy really dives into that rich literature and teaches students the love of reading. So we want both of those things, right? Why do we need to combine the two? Well, if structured literacy is just all kind of a little bit too systemy, and balanced literacy is considered just like being a flower child and just being like happy and wonderful, then we need sort of a more balanced way of looking at this. So let's look at, because we want to arm ourselves with knowledge, we want to look at the models. How do we know where to go? So we arm ourselves with knowledge by knowing the theory behind it. The simple view of reading in Scarborough's rope is based on what the science of reading has put out there, so we need to look at it. Simple view of reading, word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. So what does that mean? We need to teach people to decode. We need to teach people the language. Now, we look at structured literacy, and with all of the teaching of morphology and syntax, semantics, that is language comprehension. However, I want to pull it just back a little bit and think about what else is language, okay? And when you look at Scarborough's rope, it talks about background knowledge and vocabulary. And how do you build that? How do you build background knowledge and vocabulary? And to me, it's through experiences. And in order to have those experiences, you have to do a lot of read aloud. You have to do a lot of science and content instruction. You need to expose students to reading, video, experiments. There's so many ways to build background. And so I think that that's super important in the instruction that you pull in with your students, okay? So even if a student is struggling with reading, they have to be exposed to those things so that when they do get to more complex text, they're able to understand it because they've had some experience with it. And especially students who maybe come from homes that don't have those experiences, that's why they struggle so much. It's because they don't really have a context for what that book is talking about because they have not had that experience. So how do we combine the two together? Well, we need to be sure that we teach systematically and cumulatively through our phonics program and even through our reading workshop, writer's workshop, and so forth. I believe that reading and writing workshop is systematic, but we definitely need to figure out a way that we are constantly spiraling our curriculum and teaching our standards over and over. And I know that's really hard to do because we have so many standards that we have to cover. But hopefully over the next several months, I can show you more ways of looking at it so that I definitely believe with Common Core it is a spiral curriculum, and I'll show you more about that as the next months progress. Guided reading is typically a bad word in most structured literacy proponents' vocabularies, but I wouldn't say that it is. You don't have to use, if the MSVQs are not good for students, don't use them, okay? But I do believe that using levelized text is not going to hurt, but maybe don't use them only. Pull in some decodable text, because what do you need to do? You need to be cumulative, so that you need to be able to show students with authentic text things that you've taught them in your phonics instruction to see if they're able to transfer that understanding to text. So you definitely want to use decodables with all students, because as students progress in their reading abilities, their words are going to get harder and harder. However, we definitely need to make sure that we read for meaning. What is the point of reading if we don't teach our students how to read for meaning? And I'm telling you right now, I have students, I teach dyslexia intervention to high school students who can read to me every single word and write every single word, but they do not know what they mean. They do, or they can even tell me the meaning of the words, but when I give them a passage to read, they do not know the meaning of what they've just read. Okay? So we cannot throw away all that we've learned from balanced literacy in relation to teaching for meaning. And we'll say that one more time. We cannot throw it away. We've got to teach for meaning too. However that looks to you, read alouds, pulling in some levelized books, science experiments, content, whatever it is, you got to do it. And I think you should do it in K2. I'm just saying. People might get on my DMs and tell me that I'm wrong, but I do believe that it's important. Okay, so if you have been feeling overwhelmed and you're not really sure that how this structured literacy works, and you've just kind of been thrown out there, keep doing what you do, but pull in a few things. Make it systematic. Make it cumulative. Okay? Pull in some decodable text. Spend more time teaching phonics. Those are ways that you can easily pull in the structured literacy for your students. But you've got to spend more time. One thing you got to do, if you're not doing this, and I know you're probably thinking, well, when am I going to do this? Because I don't have enough time. And I always did it through my guided reading, was to pull in your content. We have to teach content because that is where we build the background. Okay, through video, through experiments, all of those things, we've got to be able to pull in that time. And guided reading is the perfect time to do that. And then, of course, we need to do our assessments. We must make data-informed decisions. I always love doing anecdotal notes and observing my students as they read. I always enjoy doing running records to know how they're reading. You can do running records with decodable text. Okay, so it's not just running records for levelized text. So if you're only doing decodables, you can do running records with decodables. Mastery checks are great. Exit tickets are great. Anything you can do to drive instruction to know where you're going to take your students next, that is number one. So the biggest thing I want you to do, or the takeaway from this video, is that I want you to think that one size all does not fit. The whole approach of one size fits all does not work. And Lucy Calkins said it best. I know a lot of people have been hard on her lately, and I really feel bad because I know if she's anything like Dr. Dorn was, Dr. Dorn had a heart for kids, just like you do, just like Lucy Calkins does. So we cannot demonize these women who have put their whole lives in the work that they've put in to try to help teachers and students learn how to read. This is what she said. I'm going to have to look at it to read, but all children are different. One size fits all can't be who we are, and no one approach works for everyone. Improvement in the teaching of reading will always come from responsive teachers and thought collaborative implementing an approach and then studying results. That's what Dr. Dorn taught us. We implement an approach, we study it, we reflect on it, and we try it again and we try to become better. That's how it works. Adjusting that approach based on what children show them. That's what you got to remember right there. Forget all the other stuff. You're going to try it out, step back, reflect, try it again, maybe in a different way, and see where your kids take you. That's the one thing. Try that, arm yourself with knowledge, and hopefully you're going to take a deep breath, get rid of the overwhelm, and just enjoy your kids. I hope this video helped. If you liked it, I would love it if you would like it, share it with a colleague, and subscribe to my channel. I will have another video each week to share reading and writing tips to help you in your classroom. And until next time, it drops every Sunday. So I'll see you next Sunday as we talk about literacy. See you later.